Hi everyone, and welcome to a special interview episode of Final Fantasy Union. I'm your host Daryl, and I'm here with Jon Campling.
Good evening.
How are you, John?
Not bad. Just within the last hour, arrived back at my new home in Eastbourne from a Christmas number 1 in Oxford with my in-laws. So yeah, time-wise, I'm messed up. I feel like it's after Christmas, even though it's not.
How many Christmases have you got planned?
We're having 3 this year.
Wow. Are they going to be equally spaced out? So you've got one that's like 4 days before.
We had Christmas Day number 1, as we called it yesterday, which is great. It was great, kind of cramming our normal 3 or 4 days in Oxford into one day. And then we've got the actual Christmas Day, just me and my wife Ali here in Eastbourne. First time that we've spent that just the two of us, and it's in our new home, Eastbourne. And then on the 28th, I'm going up to Hull, which is where my mum lives and my family, and we're going to have like another little Christmas Day on the 28th. So yeah, it's quite nicely spread out. At least one recovery day in between each one.
Exactly. I mean, it's like you planned this.
It's like we planned it. It was weirdly, we kind of didn't in a way. It just kind of had to be that way. For the last, gosh knows how many years, me and Ali and my mum have all gone to Oxford to Ali's in-laws. I always call my wife's parents her in-laws instead of my in-laws. How crazy. To her parents, we've done that for the past 10 odd years, so it's quite a break from tradition this year, but so far I'm loving it, apart from the confusion bit about thinking I've already had Christmas Day and yet it's not Christmas yet. I'm going into Groundhog Day mode now because I'm literally about to relive everything we just done again. So if you're going to groundhog a day, it may as well be Christmas Day, right?
That's a good point, actually. Christmas is not a bad day to have repeated.
So that's the succinct answer to your very simple question. How are you, John?
Well, okay, so yeah, I mean, going on to the interview, even if you guys don't know it, you've actually probably been looking at Jon Campling for quite some time now, as his likeness was used for none other than King Regis in Kingsglaive and Final Fantasy XV. But not just that, in Kingsglaive he was also the motion capture artist for Regis and Ardent Azunia, and he's also had some roles in the Harry Potter movies. You've been getting around, John. One tries
to spread the Camplingness as far and wide as it can. Yeah, the Final Fantasy stuff is a big step up. Although, I have to say, Harry Potter fans took me to their hearts. Bearing in mind, I do one reasonably epic but very small, simple thing in Harry Potter. Definitely Hallows 1, for those who are interested, where I stopped the Hogwarts Express, the mighty Hogwarts Express. And I've been blown away over the past, 5 or 6 years doing Comic-Cons. How much of a place in the fans' hearts that scene has and how many people know it and remember it. And, I kind of saw it as being a little bit, I guess in my mind, I wanted to play it down. I didn't want to pretend it was more than it was, but interestingly, the fans really seem to like it. And obviously, I do much more in Kingsglaive. So, yeah, I feel like the Harry Potter fans was like a good warm-up for what's happening now with Kingsglaive and Final Fantasy.
It is kind of strange how, I guess when you're acting, you never really know what people are going to enjoy. And then when you see it, does it surprise you that sometimes the scenes that you thought may have not been actually that important end up being the ones that everyone kind of talks about?
Absolutely. I mean, purely practically as an actor, we have to have show reels. So we look back at our recent work and we take bits out. We put them in a little 3-minute montage of our work, and our agents show them to people and say, look how good he is. Now, choosing which bit to use always throws up some surprises where, you think that the best bits of your stuff, and then other people will say, oh no, I like this bit. And it's a bit that you personally possibly didn't really rate at all. So yeah, you can never really tell. And as I say, I definitely, I loved what I did in Deathly Hallows. It's about a minute screen time, but I was quite happy to assume that it wasn't really going to stick and wasn't really going to lead to any kind of recognition or, especially it was the 7th film, so there's a lot of Harry Potter for the fans to dig into. But I was so wrong, I found out from my first Comic-Con, being a Death Eater is just cool. So that was my first lesson. And stopping the Hogwarts Express is pretty cool as well. So, yeah, you never know. And I think you shoot anything in a vacuum. You don't have fans coming along and telling you that they think the scene you're shooting is going to be an amazing scene. You just don't know. You don't know until, sometimes several years later when it's finally out. It's a very weird trait of the industry.
No, that's really interesting. So what's it been like being cast as Regis? And I guess it's a multi-question because obviously you knew you were Regis for a while.
I did.
Then it came out just after Uncovered. You were able to publicly announce the fact that you're Regis.
Yes.
And then the film came out, and then the game came out.
It was an incredible experience from start to finish. That whole, I mean, I'd kept the Harry Potter thing a secret. I didn't have a character name, so there wasn't a character to keep secret. But being in Harry Potter was kept secret. So luckily, I was well practiced with the idea of non-disclosure agreements. So yeah, knowing what I was involved in, and although I'm not a gamer anymore, but I was aware of the franchise Final Fantasy. Obviously, it's crossed boundaries well outside of the gaming world. It's a well-known franchise, well beyond gamers. So I was very much aware, and I just trying to think back to obviously, there's that weird thing where anything that you've been told you can't tell people about because it's so major is clearly the thing that you want to tell people about. There's a real weird dilemma set up immediately in your head but this is the one thing I desperately want to tell people about. So training yourself to just accept the NDA. Now, there's a name for this. I can't remember what it is. There's a name for that thing that once you are interested in something, you appear to see it everywhere and you feel like it's a sign. It's not. It's just that until you are interested in it, you didn't notice it. So suddenly, of course, I start noticing Final Fantasy stuff everywhere, noticing my friends talk about it all the time. And that was interesting because, that suddenly reawakened that sense of what a big franchise it was. And then I was so indoctrined into not saying the words Final Fantasy that when I was finally given the okay to say it, I almost couldn't say it. It took a couple of weeks, maybe even longer, before I could say I'm in the new Final Fantasy movie without my brain freaking out and saying, "You can't say that, John. What are you doing?" It got a real guilt complex. I was so well programmed into not saying it, or self-programmed.
You announced over Facebook, right, that you actually were Regis. Like, were you just really nervous about doing that? Like, am I actually allowed to?
Absolutely. I'd put it off for a while. From the moment I was told, I didn't do it immediately because I was thinking, well, what if they've made a mistake? What if I've misread the email? What if I'm wrong? It won't hurt to just. I've waited a year. It won't hurt to wait another couple of hours just to absolutely make sure no one's made a mistake because I can't undo this. So yeah, there was a long delay. Actually, I didn't just put it out there immediately. I was way too nervous. I was just, like I say, I'd programmed myself to feel that talking about it or saying the words Final Fantasy or King Regis was something I must never ever do. And it was quite hard to reprogram myself. It took a while. It felt weird for a while, which is weird in itself.
And then obviously when the movie came out, I'm guessing things just kind of exploded for you.
Totally. Obviously lots more followers on Twitter and on my Facebook page. It was fascinating. I'd been following the whole thing. So, I knew before all the fans did that King Regis was being redesigned. And I'd obviously done lots of research once I'd been cast and I'd seen the original, the design before me. And then, and I'd been on a few forums and was nosing around and just getting a feel for what the fans were like. And then when it was announced, seeing scarily going onto forums and seeing people talking about what they thought about the new design for King Regis, which was obviously weird for me, thinking, well, it's not a redesign. It's not, in this case, it's not an artist who's redesigned it. They've just found the face on an actor, and it happens to be my face. So hearing my face talked about in terms of, the redesign was interesting. And, in the early days, there were a fair few people who were not happy with the redesign. I found it quite funny, it's quite good to expose yourself to that type of stuff enough to get used to it. That's the world we live in. That's the way media works. That's the way, having a profile works. And I think, you can either completely ignore it, but because I'm quite an avid social media user, I can't ignore it really. So I just had to acclimatize myself to reading weird comments and just having them just wash over me. But that was weird saying, I hate the new redesign. Why have they changed him? He looks so old. And I'd kind of be slightly heartbroken for a millisecond and then just laugh. Because I thought to myself, well, just hang on, this is just a very small sample of immediate reactions. And of course, they're going to be loyal to the old design. Everyone would be. But I think I'm right in saying now that most people have kind of accepted the new design. I'm doing quotes, design, and seem to have warmed to my face, which is lovely.
Yeah, it must be pretty pleasing.
Pretty pleasing, yeah. That's it's pretty pleasing.
It's a very English way of saying it.
It's very, very downplayed, I mean, it's been phenomenal, in some small way and in a way that I think is the right amount. It's been a little bit life-changing. Obviously, I have a new thing that I'm always going to be known for. I didn't become an actor to seek fame or fortune. I became an actor because I felt that I could have a happy life in that job. I used to work in an aircraft factory building airplanes, and I wasn't happy doing that at all. So I was looking for something that I could do for the rest of my life and, not get tired of and enjoy. And acting was the answer. So I'm glad that I've avoided fame and fortune to the amount that it completely changes your life for this long in my career. It's been a meticulously planned event. With Harry Potter just bringing me a little bit of profile, and now Final Fantasy bringing me more profile, but just the right amount, I think. It's lovely.
Yeah, you kind of alluded in one of your previous answers there about the fact that you were aware of Final Fantasy. But we got a question from a Twitter user at Sora96 who was just wondering exactly how familiar were you with Final Fantasy? Like, have you played any of the games before?
I don't think I'd ever played any. I went from Atari, the Atari ST, to a PC, basically. I kind of got serious and decided to stop playing games because I was losing days. And while I was an unemployed actor, so I had days to lose as well, which was even worse. And I decided that, my computer needed to be a business machine, really. So I invested in a PC. I think my brother gave me one of his old cast-offs, and it didn't have a graphics card, couldn't play games. Back in the day when PCs really didn't have any of that sound card, graphic card stuff, and it was just used for writing job applications for acting jobs and tweaking my CV, and I didn't play games. But I've always been very aware of the logo, that amazing image. I've always, I think at a very early stage in my life, that caught my eye just as an artistic piece. I'd always thought that was particularly beautiful.
I mean, it was very different over here because it's obviously just the logo with the white background, whereas a lot of other games kind of try to show as much stuff on the cover as they can.
Yeah, I think that's maybe what stuck out. The fact that it's pretty much, it seems to me as a non-expert to have stayed pretty much the same as well. They've kept that continuity throughout it all, because obviously the games themselves change, but that logo through sheer persistence over time, which I think is a really good idea, to have that one logo that and it's just a beautiful piece of artwork as well, very intricate, very delicate. And I do remember thinking that and noticing that long time ago, being impressed by it. But sadly, it was at the point where I'd stopped playing. There may have been a point where what I ended up doing was, in order to satisfy my need to play the odd game, once my PC, a few years later when PCs had improved and graphics cards were kind of getting better, I would buy, PC magazines that would come with several game demos on them. So I worked out if I just played the demo, there's no way I could lose days. I would lose one day, maybe one night. I'd play the demo, and then once I'd beaten the demo, I wouldn't buy the game. I'd just play another demo. That was my methodology for controlling my addictive personality with games. There may well have been a Final Fantasy demo that I dived into as well.
Okay, well, the next question we have is from Angel's Crow, who says, what was it like to portray a character who was also portrayed by Sean Bean?
Oh, me and Sean Bean, what a team. Team Regis, I call us. I was fascinated by the whole thing, and while, it would be disingenuous of me to say that, I didn't wish at times that I was doing the voice as well, or, who wouldn't, to do that whole thing. But I'm a realist, and I understand, the economics of marketing a film. And, Square Enix were very upfront with me from the very get-go. It was a double-edged sword, no pun intended, sword gag. Being cast as King Regis, obviously he's a fundamental character. I used to read the description saying, Kingsglaive, follows the story of King Regis, and think, wow, I'm the main character, the character that the story revolves around. But the flip side of being that important as a character was that was going to be one of the characters that they needed a name, I'm doing quotes again, a name for, because obviously, with all films at all levels, getting distribution and getting that marketing machine going, ideally works best with names attached. So I always knew that there was a very high probability that King Regis would be voiced or revoiced by a name. And being a realist, I just immediately absorbed that and thought, okay, there's a downside to that. I'm not doing the voice, but what are the upsides? Because everything has an upside to it. And the upside to that was I'm forever linked to Sean Bean. And you can't buy that. You can't buy being forever linked to Sean Bean.
No, you cannot.
That's a unique thing that I had, this weird symbiosis with Sean Bean. And also, from my point of view as an actor, every day that I was mocapping, and for those who aren't, well, obviously it's fairly obvious that I'm the face. I was the 3D scan model, but I, did about 3 weeks mocap acting as well, creating all the body physicality and movements, and all the facial emotional physicality and movement as well. So all those emotions you see, that was me doing that. But I also did all the lines. I also did a full, for me as an actor, it was a full performance. I was never told, don't worry about the dialogue, John. I was directed on the dialogue, Takeshi would, be very nitpicky about the dialogue as well as the actions. So, they got a vocal performance out of me as well, which, I believe that meant they could spend, less time with Sean. Obviously, getting those big names, and you just want to get them in for a couple of days to record stuff. They already had a framework of the delivery that Sean would listen to, and then he would, as I put it, beanify it.
Okay, so our next question is from Lewis James, and he asks, in order to prepare for the role, were you able to look at previous footage of Regis from Versus XIII?
I saw some previous footage. I guess it must have been from Versus XIII. I was actually sent clips for the audition. So even before, when I was auditioning, I'd already signed a non-disclosure agreement so they could show us stuff. So I was sent a clip. I wasn't sure what it was from at the time, but I was sent clips. So I have seen. And then once I knew, I obviously did some Googling. So I was able to see a little bit. I didn't look at too much, though. I was more interested for me, I was interested in how they were changing his appearance, clearly, because his appearance was now me, which was fascinating. And the rest of it, the rest of the performance was going to be starting from scratch, really. And I just leave myself in the mercy of the director, really. I talk to the director, get a basic idea, give them what I think they wanted, and then allow them to feedback, an infinite feedback loop of them fine-tuning what I'm doing to make sure it matches what they had in their head.
Okay, this next question is from KCISME, and they want to know if you were close with the rest of the cast. Obviously, you did the motion capture for a couple of weeks, and I guess that you'd have been quite close with those guys.
Absolutely. I spent a lot of time with Liam, and yeah, they were there slightly more full-time, so I was dropping in and out, and luckily, because they were all super lovely, so on the days that I turned up, sometimes they'd be there a day before me and maybe a couple of days after me, so they would already be established, but it was always a really nice environment, so I could drop in, be part of the team again. Sadly, I didn't get to go to Japan. We shot all my King Regis stuff before the final block. So on the final block, several of them got to go and do mocap in Japan, which, wow, what an amazing bonus for those guys. So I was slightly jealous that my King Regis stuff was all done by that point. Damn my efficiency, I think, is what I said at the time. If only I'd been a little bit less good at mocap, there may have been some pickups to do. But me being so good at mocap meant it all got done on time, including adding in Arden Azunia as well. So, but it was a really, really close-knit team, and several of them had done mocap before. So, they were there to kind of just get the rest of us, the ones of us, so me, Liam, Adrian. Definitely not. I don't think Adrian had done mocap before, and it is a weird thing to do. It's very odd, and you spend your first day trying to. I don't know. Well, for me personally, I spent the first day trying to work out what's it like. What's this like? What can I compare it to? Why can I have to get an angle on it? Because it's not really like any one thing. It's like several things. But yeah, definitely strong team spirit every day on the shoot, which really helps.
That does lead into the next question from Emily Ryan, who wants to know, how does mocap differ from regular acting? Is it harder, easier, or just a bit different?
First couple of days it was harder. Once you've done it for a while, it's not harder, it's just different. But I've got quite a good analytical brain, so my brain was analyzing it from the moment I was there, trying to work out. I need to draw on other experiences. I think it's what I do in my life quite a lot. Whenever I'm doing something new, my brain is saying, right, so is any part of this new thing like anything you've done before? And if so, then I can pull in experiential skills from that and piece it together. And for me, the light came on, above my head, ching, when I realized it's actually more like theatre than film, which obviously you're not going to think that. You're going to be in a film, so you're naturally thinking filmically. And when I kind of just really threw my imagination out there to think, what is this reminding me of? I thought, actually, it's reminding me of theatre, because you're in a large space, like a stage, and there are no cameras around because it's not being filmed. It's digital information being captured digitally. There are no cameras. You don't do reverse shots and setups, and there's no lights. So in terms of the physical space that you're acting in and the other actors, it's far more like being on a stage than being on a film shoot. Once my brain kind of made that leap, because it's a counterintuitive leap, I suddenly found it a lot easier. The other difficulty is, for me personally, I play a lot of characters who look interesting, who I often wear good costumes, and part of my character is based around what I'm wearing. even if it's just for sort of status.
Yeah, and I guess the mocap suits don't have quite that same charm.
You're just wearing a mocap suit, so I look just the same as everyone else. And, I'm trying to be King Regis, and I got that, trying to have that status and that power. And usually I'm heavily reliant on the costume, particularly the shoes, weirdly, to kind of make me feel high status so that I can be high status. So I had to just throw all that out the window, and that's not going to work, obviously. So finding ways around that was interesting. I found it really interesting and exciting looking back at the behind the scenes and seeing how I was moving and how I was walking and how I was trying to carry myself and override the bit of my brain that was saying, yeah, but you're wearing a weird wetsuit, John, with white balls stuck all over it. That's pretty low status, isn't it? Although weirdly, it does look a bit Tron. So there is a kind of bit of a sci-fi thing going on as well. I love acting and I love technology. So acting within a mocap environment was, for me, the perfect marrying of my two loves, actually, technology and acting. So I was in my element.
You mentioned then that you were kind of, I guess, a novice at the mocap, but you then had to play two characters. Was that quite difficult to kind of switch between the two while also trying to figure out what was going on?
I was up to speed by the time they asked me to mocap Arden. As I say, I'd never done any mocap ever in my life, so this was my first ever mocap. Partly because I've got a beard and they don't really use bearded guys for mocap because they have to stick the little white dots on your face, and facial hair doesn't go well with that. And as you can see from the behind the scenes, I had to shave my beard off. So they spent ages finding the guy with the perfect beard and then said, shave it off. Hilarious. So, but I think, one of my skills I like to think is I'm a quick learner. So I adapted pretty quickly within a couple of days once I got my head round mocap. And what was interesting was, I was incredibly flattered when they asked me to do Arden, because obviously that was a real sign that they felt that I could do it, and also that I could do it and it wouldn't put them behind, that I could do all my Regis stuff and the Arden stuff. So it was an incredibly flattering thing for them to ask me to do, as well as being exciting. But also, weirdly, King Regis is possibly one of the stillest characters in the film. He's got that regal power where he doesn't really do much, he doesn't move much. And obviously, Arden is incredibly flamboyant physically. I remember the night before when I shot the scene of Arden coming into the palace to propose I don't give any spoilers away there. When he meets King Regis in the palace and he has to walk up those steps. And he's waving his arm around. And we're rehearsing that with my wife the night before in the living room, and coming up with a couple of moves. Particularly there's a point where he brings his two fingers together, and that bit I so remember kind of coming up with that move at home and showing my wife it, and my wife going, yeah, that was quite good. And then seeing that in the trailer and thinking, wow, that's a thing.
So that was the kind of thing you just came up with. It wasn't.
Yeah.
Didn't ask you to do it.
No, that's all me. Yeah, that's all of that. Me going up the stairs is just what I did for Arden, pretty much. Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
It's weird because it's like it's not the thing that I'm known for in that film. I'm known for being King Regis, but personally, I'm really proud of my Arden because he's such a flamboyant character. He's got a lot of arm movements going on. And it's, and a lot of that physicality, it's something as a theatre actor, I'm obviously able to do and enjoy doing. If anything, I've had to learn to do the stillness. So I'm naturally a flamboyant, an actor who uses his physicality quite well and, can wave my arms and, make shapes, as it were. And obviously for Regis and for film generally, I tend to play, characters that have to be still. And I've always had to fight the desire to, flail around and be big. So it was quite nice being able to unleash a little bit of that with Arden. And yeah, next time you see that little bit, it was in the trailer. It was like they almost edited the trailer around that moment where the camera spins around Arden and he brings his two fingers together. I won't say why, and I remember thinking, wow, they've actually seen that and thought we can edit the trailer around that slightly. That's a really nice moment. And then I'm thinking, and that was just me in my living room the night before when they'd asked me to do it for the next day, playing around with ideas and thinking this might be quite nice. Turns out it was.
You mentioned then briefly that they picked the perfect beard and then they asked you to shave it off.
Yeah. Epic
Runner wants to know, how is your beard so perfect?
I'm tempted to say it just is, but that'll be a cop out of an answer. My beard is changing. It's a fascinating thing, a beard. I'm very lucky as a man who can grow a beard. I know some men have trouble growing beards. I've got friends who can't grow beards. Some people can grow beards, but they itch. Mine has never itched. To be honest, unless I look in a mirror, I forget I've even got a beard a lot of the time. It doesn't cause me any discomfort or problems. It's just there. but I can't tell it's there unless it's huge. So I was recently on tour playing King Arthur and Merlin in a stage tour in the UK, and I let the beard grow really, really big, and it got to the point where I had to drink everything through a straw. Guinness, wine, tea, didn't matter, had to be drunk through a straw because my mustache and beard were just so big. That was slightly annoying. But when it's trimmed, when it's kind of Regis length, yeah, it just does its own thing. It just sits there and gets me work.
What was it like when you had to shave it off? Was that just really strange?
It was so strange, Daryl. You can't even imagine. It freaked out the rest of the cast. The behind-the-scenes crew filmed it being shaved off, so there is footage of me shaving it. It hasn't surfaced yet, but there is footage of me shaving it. I hadn't shaved for 5 years, so I hadn't seen my chin for 5 years. And, you know, I tend to usually have quite a sort of pointy beard, so long and pointy, which adds about 2 inches to the length of my face, actually. And although you know it's beard and you know it's not face, there's still something weird that when you remove that 2 inches, your face looks 2 inches too short. So my face looked really round and weird. Plus, the reason I grew the beard in the first place was because I'd grown my hair, and I found that the hair with a clean-shaven face didn't really work. You know, it looked a bit 80s. What was his name? Curtis Stigers. So I kind of grew the beard to pair up with the hair, and that's when I realized that people started telling me that my face and my hair and my beard together made something, you know, that was better than the sum of its parts in a weird way. So they kind of all worked together. So once I lost the beard, I felt like my hair didn't work either. So I stopped having my hair down ever, and I just had my hair under a hat. So when I came down after shaving, I had my hair under like a little beanie hat. And my hair goes like really flat, so you can't even tell. So I came down. All the guys were in the bar in the hotel where about to film the next day, and we were all staying over the night before. And I came down, and no one recognized me. I stood right next to them at their table with this beanie hat on, covering my hair, so you couldn't tell I had long hair and no beard. And I just didn't look like me. And they all freaked out when they kind of suddenly did a double take. And plus, I looked about 20 years younger, at least. Quite freaky for all concerned.
I bet you must have kind of enjoyed that, though.
I kind of did, but I kind of not enough to, I missed the beard as well. Even my mum was like, "Oh no, I prefer you with the beard," which is weird because for a good 40 years of my life, I didn't have a beard. But my mum then was like, "I prefer you with the beard." What can you do?
All right, you kind of mentioned that you were looking at comments and stuff around the Regis design, but Samantha Pry wants to know, what was your first reaction when you saw yourself in CG, like full on?
I was blown away. I don't like saying it really, because I'm not a conceited person at all. I'm not, as I said, I never came into this business for anything other than just trying to find a way through life that, wouldn't grind me down and that I could be happy in. But King Regis looks stunning. As when I do my Comic Cons, I've got, Square Enix were kind enough to supply me with a lovely high-res image of King Regis full length. Which, I've got a fabulous banner. And, I've probably taken it to about 6 Comic Cons now. So I've had it stood next to me at about 6 Comic Cons, and it still takes my breath away when I, pull it up. Because he just looks amazing. And then part of me is like thinking, oh, but that's your face. That's a bit weird. And then I get a bit weirded out at kind of liking the image. And then I'll tell myself, oh, but it's the costume and everything else. It's not just the face, but it's a pretty good face. I love his hair. I wish my hair, if I had short hair, I would want it to look like Regis's. It's kind of it's very fine, like my hair, and slightly grayer. But it's an odd feeling if you're not an egomaniac. Seeing an image that's based on you, that's been made much cooler than you are. It's slightly weird because your first impression is to just go, that looks amazing, and then immediately feel slightly bad for having kind of been impressed by your own image. I'm kind of used to it in a way as well because, again, I'm making a run for my own back.
I guess, you'd see yourself on film a lot, right?
I do. I'm lucky. I'm not sure lucky is the right word, but I'm going to go with it. I'm lucky that because of the way I look, because of my hair and my beard and my stature and my experience now, I guess I mainly get to play cool characters. So I'm used to seeing myself as characters who look pretty cool. They might be bad guys, I'm not saying they're good guys. I'm talking about the way they look, not whether they are worthy of being, respected or anything. Some of them are terrible people, but they look cool. I think it goes right back to my first proper film role, which is just before I did Harry Potter. I worked on an independent, lowish budget, midish budget, independent kind of horror thriller called Dead End, originally called Hard Shoulder, now released under Dead End. And I was cast as a character called Diggs, a very iconic looking character, full tattoos all down his arms, scar across the eye, my long hair, great costume, real nasty piece of work, but he looked fantastic. He just looked cool. And that was my first film, really. And that was kind of a turning point where I realized, oh, I can play characters that look really cool. That's interesting. That's quite good for the ego momentarily. As my casting type changed, as I grew my hair and beard, I went from being romantic lead, kind of normal looking, reasonably good looking, normal guy, brother, boyfriend, guy next door, husband, whatever, son, to playing characters who exist on the periphery of society for whatever reason, either because they're, supernatural, or they're just weird, or they're, magical in some way, or they're terrible people. But all of those characters tend to nearly always look quite cool. So does it sound bad to say I'm used to looking really cool? Probably does, doesn't it?
I don't think so.
And as an actor, you have to get to know your product. And my product is a lot of the time looking cool. Yeah, I'm trying not to say that, but that kind of is what I do.
It's okay. I said it for you.
Thank you. Or striking. It's not always cool. Often it's just looking striking, because in film, quite often they want a character to make an impression the moment it's revealed on screen. On stage, not so much. On stage, you can spend some time letting a character develop, and an audience finds out what the character's about through the acting. In film and TV, they kind of want to make a statement straight away. So having a good look is quite good for that. A strong look, sorry, not a good look, a strong look.
Okay, so we're getting on to some slightly more, let's say, strange questions now, but not necessarily related to the role. So Kinfolk wants to know, if you could wield any kind of magic in real life, what would it be? Would it be like an elemental, fire, ice, thunder, or something else?
Wielding magic. This is it.
Obviously, Regis has a preference for the old thunder, lightning.
I do like Regis's magic. I'd be happy just to be able to sit in an armchair and tickle fire in the palm of my hand, to be honest, because that Regis makes that look so cool. Just tickling fire in the palm of my hand. But I guess it would be nice to have something that was more useful than that. I'm really bad at broad choices. I'm the worst person to take to a restaurant where they've got like a massive menu, because how do you decide? My logical brain says to me, unless you've tried every single thing here, you couldn't possibly know which one to choose. So now my logical brain is saying, well, how can you compare these magics, John, because you haven't tried them all? I'm trying to get my brain out of that track. It's the one it goes to, Daryl. It's the logical one that it goes to.
I mean, we've gone with tickling fire in the hand, so I think fire is a valid answer here.
I feel like he has to do something with the fire. I mean, I love the way Regis manifests the swords, and also the ice barrier. That amazing ice barrier. That was pretty hardcore. Is just yeah. So I mean, there's so many types of magic you could have, and I feel like it should be a magic for good, though. Something that is gonna. But then you start getting in the realms of the ability to heal all illness, which sounds like a Miss World contestant saying something to impress the judges.
You've been practicing your speech.
Yes, I want the ability to end poverty. I mean, weirdly, I often say to people that being me now, so being Jon Campling at this point in my life, having done Harry Potter and some stuff, and having done this, and when I'm at a Comic-Con and I meet people, I feel like I have a superpower. Which is, next best thing to magic, I suppose. It's the same thing, isn't it, really? And I have the superpower to just make people smile and be happy because they've met me. That is an insanely good superpower or magic to have, because it doesn't cost me anything. It doesn't take away from me. It's not like King Regis. I don't age 10 years every time someone meets me at a Comic-Con. It doesn't take anything out of me, and I love the fact that I feel like I have this magical power now that being in Harry Potter and Final Fantasy has given me, and I never want to not feel like that. That some people can just come and meet me, and it doesn't mean I'm anything other than just a normal person, obviously, but for that moment when they meet me and other people, obviously, anyone who's a little bit famous, there's just that sense of amazement that they have, and I see it in their eye, especially kids as well. I see it in their eye, and they go away and they'll talk about it, and it all affected their day, but it didn't cost me anything. You know what I mean? It was so easy to do, just like touching them, and they were happy. So the gift of happiness.
Well, I've got another ambiguous question here for you, John.
Good, I love them.
This one's from Lizzie Kavanagh, and they want to know, if you could actually be king for a day, what would be your first decree?
That's a really good question, isn't it? I'm going to try and answer this one quickly. I'm way too thoughtful for things like this. This is the problem with me. I like to, it must be the right answer. King for a day, King Regis for a day. I've gone logical again already. What's the timeline on Kingsglaive is quite short, isn't it? Because a lot of it is about the treaty being signed. So in that day, poor old King Regis doesn't get to do any of. You can't put anything right, otherwise he would.
He had to make some tough decisions that day.
Yes. I mean, I would try and make life better for the majority of my subjects. Not a very sexy answer, but
I could then say, "How would you do that, Jon?"
Yeah, you
but
could.
I won't be that.
No, you
mean.
could. What's their main problem? What is the main thing that is affecting and blighting the lives of the majority of Lucians? Is it the fear of Niflheim? So I'd have to erase that threat, wouldn't I?
Yeah.
There are no easy answers, Daryl.
There's none.
Free food.
Being king's hard.
Free food for everybody for a day.
It's like, I'm going to sign a peace treaty that may go sour. Everyone have free food. You'll forget about it. You'll be happy in that short moment.
If I could do anything, if there was anything I could do, I would do it. But, I think there's nothing he could do, is there? Otherwise, he would have done it. I mean, I suppose he's slightly obsessed with Noctis. He does slightly obsess over, but I've got to save Noctis. I've got to protect Noctis. But I don't think there's anything he could have done. So, yeah, it's a tough one. No easy answers.
All right, so last question is from Alan Asprey, and he wants to know, what, in your opinion, is the most epic moment in Kingsglaive?
It's all epic, isn't it? It's. I mean, so much epicness in that film. I genuinely, is it really epic though? The bit at the end. Well, how are we on spoilers now so far after the film's out?
We can try and be ambiguous about it.
That bit at the end, that's quite epic. How ambiguous is that?
That's pretty ambiguous.
I'm really good at being ambiguous. Okay, what I found epic, and I was lucky enough to see it in the cinema, obviously at the sort of cast and crew official launch. It was when they were battling the really big monsters. When you got that sense of scale, when suddenly the Kingsglaive appeared to be these little ants skipping around, and you've got these huge. There's that one particular monster that's the demon, and it's just like surrounded in dust and clouds, and you can't really see the demon within it at that point. I was watching that stunned at the epicness of the changes in scale when suddenly we were down, looking sort of a POV equivalent to the Kingsglaive. So we were seeing the monster ginormous, and then we'd kind of pull out and we'd see the monster in its entirety, and then the Kingsglaive were tiny little ants. So you kept jumping between those scales. And just the way it was lit, there was so much orange and the light coming through the dust or the kind of cloud around the demon. I found particularly epic, that sense of scale, which I know is in the game as well. I've not played the game yet. I haven't yet committed to buying a games machine.
Based on what you said earlier, that's a big decision.
Yeah, I'm desperate to play it, but I don't have a PlayStation, so that means that game cost me £299 more than it costs everyone else.
Is there anyone that you could potentially rent it
Possibly,
from or
if
get a loan?
If it hadn't have been Christmas and I hadn't just moved into a new house and wasn't Christmas, I probably would have borrowed a PlayStation off someone by now and played it. But because other priorities have kind of taken over, I just moved into a new house. Don't have anywhere, and didn't have a TV for a while, and don't know many people. So, various things have conspired against me to mean I haven't been able to just nip round to a mate's and borrow it. Plus, I kind of want to own it and play it myself. I do want to, do that, and I think I think it'd be funny as well. I want to do a little bit of video and do some little posts with Jon Campling playing the game, laughing at King Regis or something. That's going to be quite fun to do. But yeah, every time I've thought I'm going to do it, I've just thought I can't justify spending £299 on a games machine just to play this one game. Catch-22, I'm afraid.
It's a fair dilemma. That I think many people have
I do have some
faced.
people, hopefully, who in the very beginning of the new year, we're going to get together and we're going to set something up. I've got a projector. I think I'm going to take my projector around to their place, and I'm going to provide the projector. They're going to provide the wall and the PlayStation and the game, and we're going to film something, and I'm going to play it. So hopefully in the new year, very very immediately in the new year, that will happen.
Weird question then to round things out. Did you do any mocap for the game at all?
It's hard to know.
Because I was thinking maybe you could, when the scene's on the projector in the background, you could then stand up and act the scene.
I know there's only a couple of little story setup bits with King Regis. He's not playable or anything, which is a shame. He should be a playable character, clearly. So when I see them, because, I would go in each day and be given, as far as I'm aware, most of what I was specifically asked to do was for Kingsglaive. However, because the sequences for the film are, film, not game, and it's not like it would be, oh, you're doing it for the game now. It would, because it's just film the same, those sequences. But plus, the tech guys are fabulous, and obviously once they've got you, they can repurpose stuff. So it'll be interesting to know. I'm not sure if are there credits on the game. Maybe I need to go and look at the credits on the game. And
there are very, very extensive credits.
Because it may just be my likeness that I can claim with the game, which is absolutely fine. That's good enough for me. Obviously, seasoned game voicer Jim Pirry does my voice. Get me, because I am King Regis. Does King Regis's voice in the game, I believe. He seems a very friendly chap. He often tweets me, and I tweet him back. So yeah, I maybe need to go and track down the credits and see what the official line from Square Enix is as to whether they felt they needed to credit me for mocap. It's fine if they haven't. It's my face up there, so they can't take that away from me.
They certainly can't. All right, have you got any? Just the last thing, have you got any funny stories from recording or anything that took place apart from the shaving off the beard and then scaring everyone?
Oh, we did have a lot of laughs. It's not a funny story per se, but it sounds ridiculous because you just asked for a funny story, didn't you? But it was amusing that I think I said earlier, I'm quite analytical, so my brain just goes into problem-solving mode all the time, which is great. It's very handy. It's why I was quite a good engineer and quite a good actor as well, because problem-solving skill is quite handy. So one of the biggest issues when you first start mocapping is the helmet. You're wearing this helmet that's clamped onto your head, because it's unbalanced. It's got this, it's got the cameras protruding about a foot in front of your face. So it's very unbalanced. So it has to be clamped to your head to stop it from just falling off. And it's made of metal and it's quite heavy. And, your first day doing mocap is hell because you get a migraine, you get a stiff neck, you get terrible headaches. You do kind of get used to it. Those new muscle groups kind of kick in and go, okay, you need me to do this now. But I was quite keen to kind of make it as comfortable as possible. So my Auntie Sue, who lives up in Hull, knitted me some woolly hats, a red one and a blue one, and I started wearing Auntie Sue's woolly hats, red and blue, underneath my mocap helmet, which was caused a lot of hilarity because King Regis was wearing these they looked like kind of football hats that young lads would wear in the 50s. I support red and I support Team Blue, very simplistic football. They were quite big woolly hats, so they stuck out quite a lot from around the. So I turned up on set as this, kind of, I'm doing quotes again, cool-looking actor with long hair and a beard, and then on set I was this weird-looking beardless guy with a woolly hat on, wearing a wetsuit. So that you can see it if you look at some of the behind the scenes. You can spot Auntie Sue's woolly hats. Auntie Sue was very starstruck that her woolly hats were worn in the making of a feature film.
I was going to say you could have a good business model.
Auntie Sue's
the other mocap artists.
Auntie Sue's woolly mocap hats. And I have to say, it made me easy to spot as well because mocap actors tend to look very similar because you're all wearing almost identical gear. But where's Jon? Oh, there he is, red woolly hat, blue woolly hat. But it massively improved the comfort of the helmet. So I was able to sort of have to not have to. Quite often, as soon as you get a break, the first thing you want to do is take your helmet off. That does kind of slow things down getting back onto set because you've got to get your helmet back on and get it sort of set up. So I was able to keep my helmet on quite often because it wasn't causing any problems.
Hence the efficiency of how you could get your stuff done.
Well, maybe they've noticed that Jon's very quick because he doesn't take his helmet off. So I feel towards the end I ended up where literally my helmet wouldn't hurt at all. I could just wear it all day pretty much, and it didn't really bother me because I was spreading the pressure around my head via soon to be patented Auntie Sue woolly mocap helmet. The only other weird thing was, have you seen the bit in the BTS where I'm talking to the little marionette?
No, I haven't seen that.
So because King Regis's throne room is vast and it's on multi-levels, and obviously we didn't have that. We were just in the volume, as they call it, which is like, I don't know, 30-foot square, but only on one level. So I'm sat on, bits of wood that have been put together to make me feel like I'm sat on a throne. So we altered the height of it to get my, I kind of said, I think my legs should be. I think the first seat they gave me, my knees were quite high. I was like, I think my tops of my legs should be parallel to the ground, not going up into the air. So they'd altered that. And then I was talking, I think it was the bit where I'm talking to Luna, when Luna first comes back, and she's meant to be like 3 floors below me. There's no floors there, obviously. It's open, but she's the equivalent of 3 floors below me. And they brought out this, we were trying to get the eye lines right and that sense of distance. So they brought out a little marionette, like a little artist's wood puppet, like, I don't know, about 9 inches tall. And they sat that kind of to make me feel that I was seeing a small person a long way away, a normal sized person a long way away. And obviously we all laughed and guffawed when that was first brought out. It turned out to be a good trick and it really worked. But yeah, when you again go back and 2 things for you to look for, and all you people listening at home to look for in the behind the scenes at Kingsglaive is Auntie Sue's woolly hat. See if you can spot the blue one and the red one. And also the bit with the little marionette where King Regis is talking to a wooden puppet. Hilarious.
You're ruining the illusion here, though, John. All the tricks of the trade coming through.
It's in the BTS. I'm only doing what Square Enix have already done. Don't do any of that until you watch the film, obviously. Watch the film and then watch the BTS. That's the way it's meant to be. Anything else would be crazy.
All right, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us today,
No
John.
worries, Darryl. Absolute pleasure. Always a pleasure to chat to the Final Fantasy Union chaps.
And of course, if you enjoyed the interview, let us know in the comments and be sure to subscribe to our channel. We'll see you next time, guys.
Bye!